Yes, the power meter for the Evo is finally here. Now, I did some deliberation over this because in a previous video I mentioned that I was going to go with an Avio power meter. Now, Avio, for those who aren't familiar with them, are a UK startup, and I've got to give them every credit. They've done exactly what needed to be done in the power meter space, which is to say there's a lot of expensive crap associated with power meters. How can we get through that and just deliver you the thing that you need? And let's be honest with you, with a power meter, the thing that you need is that little blob that sticks on the back of a crank arm that measures the strain that you're putting through the crank, that tells you how much power you're putting out. And you know, it was always begging for somebody to come up with a solution that said, well, if they can fit exactly the same blob to Shimano, SRAM, whoever's crank arm, then it's got to be a pretty universal fitment. And Avio came up with a pretty good solution in that they just sell you effectively that power meter unit that you glue to your own crank arm, and you can put it on any crank arm. That's the great thing, you know. So I've got the new bike, which has got Shimano 105 R7000 on it, and there aren't a great many power meters pre-built for that, so I did think, you know, I'll go with Avio. But I sold a disc wheel off my time trial bike, and that gave me about 500 quid spare. So I thought, what do? Do I pay 250 for the Avio, or do I pay sort of like 150 quid more, probably 170 quid more, and get a Stages? Because Stages seem to be the only people making a pre-built R7000 crank arm for the 105 group set. And I really deliberated over this. There were a number of reasons I wanted to get the Avio, one of them being it would be a great video, you know, me fitting the Avio to the crank arm. But I've got to be honest, this is kind of one of these situations where I've only got this money once, so I've got to get it right. So if I spend 250 on the Avio and it turns out to be, shall we say, a bit beta, then that's 250 quid down the drain. And a very sage guy I used to cycle with used to live by the saying that pay cheap, pay twice. And you know, he's kind of right. So the choice was £250 for the Avio, get a video out of it, fitting it and stuff like that, or do I pay 420 quid ish for Stages? And I think you can tell by that box what I went with. Now, the reasons I went with Stages are, I've got another Stages power meter. It's rock solid. They're endorsed by a number of big race teams, and I just had a better feeling about it. When I looked at ordering the Avio, there were a couple of kind of things that didn't make me feel comfortable. One, I'm ordering for essentially a 105 crank set, not a 105 5700 or 5800, the R7000. So you're in that kind of crossover band where the R7000 group set, their power meter module fits differently on different crank arms dependent on what kind of group set you've got. And currently they only sell kind of one fitting for a 105, which fits the opposite way round to their standard fitting. And the reason for that is that the old 5800 crank arms were just a little bit narrower than like Ultegra or something like that, so you've got that different fitting. I did email them and said, like, I've got R7000, what should I order? And they said, I'll go for the standard one. But then when I went into the ordering process, there was no box for me to tick to say, you know, like, I want this module to fit this crank arm. So that kind of spooked me a little bit, if I'm honest. Also, you know, there's the whole thing about fitting it. If you watch their own videos online, I've got to give them absolute credit for putting videos on there on how you fit this thing. But there seem to be kind of gaps in their videos, really important gaps. For example, you know, if you're going to epoxy the sender unit to a crank arm, you want to prepare the crank arm surface to receive it. So, you know, kind of all they go into is that, I don't know, there's a little bit of preparation that they do on, I think it's the sender unit itself, and like mixing up the epoxy and sticking it on. But in their demo video, they've got the crank arm covered in tape, obviously because they don't want to stick this thing to a real crank arm, you know. But that doesn't work, you know. If you're going to prepare the crank arm, you want to be kind of keying that crank arm to receive that unit. Plus, I think that it's really important about the measurements that you get between the end of the unit and the end of the pedal spindle and the middle of the crank arm, you know, and stuff like that. And there's no mention of that. So, you know, again, that just felt a little bit like it needs a little bit more work. And so, and also kind of the final part was in their fitting video. They show sort of attaching the power sender unit to the crank arm with epoxy. Fine, epoxy is really, really strong. I mean, it sticks aircraft together. But then they show you, you know, like wrap insulating or wrap electrical tape around it to hold it all together whilst it sets. And then they show you sort of, oh, but then you've got to peel the tape off and wipe off the excess. It just felt, it didn't feel right to me. Whereas I can buy stages, and I know that somebody in a factory has been and glued this thing correctly to the crank arm in exactly the right position, and it's going to be utterly reliable from the moment I take it out of the box. So that's kind of why I went with this. There was one final factor as well, in that when you've fitted your power, is it Powersense unit, I think Avio call it, to your crank arm, you've then got to calibrate it. Now in their fitting kit, if you do it yourself, they send you a bag that you fill with 10 litres of water, giving you a 10 kilogram force that you fit to the pedal spindle end of it, and you can then calibrate it using their app. But their app is currently only Android, and I've got an Apple iPhone. So what am I going to do? You know, go begging for somebody that's got an iOS, that's got an Android phone that they'll lend me to install an app on that they don't want to calibrate my power meter. So it just felt like, I really want to give these guys credit because they're just doing such the right thing. They're making power meters affordable. And I think, give them a couple of years when they've got an iOS app and when they've got, you know, a better solution for fixing this to your crank arm, and they've got a more robust way of ordering it to know that before I hit buy now, I'm going to get the right thing. They'll clean up, because this will be great, and their accuracy looks good. You know, you look at the various reviews that I've seen of it, their accuracy is pretty good, and by their own standards, they even, like one of the blog posts I read on their website, they sent a batch of strain gauges back because they didn't meet their own standards. Utterly commendable. But for the consumer, for somebody like me that's only got this money once, you make a choice. And if I spent 250 quid on something that I glued to my crank arm and then just spent every ride regretting, I'd just be wishing that I'd bought stages. So stages it is, stages we go with. Let's get it on the bike. Okay, so how many times is it now that you've heard me say I don't do unboxing videos? And I used to say I don't do unboxing videos, but clearly I do. So here you are. Here's stages and what you get with your stages power meter. Now this is the 105 R7000 kit I've got here, but based on the last one I got, they're pretty much the same. So let's just swivel that light round a little bit. Right, there you go. So when you open the box, there is your lovely crank arm with the power meter fitted to it. And yeah, let's just take this out and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's get something to open this up with. Thank you. There you go, cut along there. Right, so what stages do, let's get that out of the way. What stages do is they take a standard crank arm and they fit their power meter module to it for you. Nothing else you've got to do basically. You've just got, your only job is to fit this to your bike, which is dead simple. If you can change a crank arm, you can change this thing. So yeah, this, I mean, it looks lovely. You know, and this is the difference between buying one that you glue on yourself and one that somebody else has glued on. There's kind of no residue outside this. This just looks the business. So there's your crank arm. Okay, let's put that over there. What else do you get in the box? Well, obviously you get instructions. Now I have to give it to Stages. That's a pretty good instruction leaflet. To be fair, I've bought PCs and televisions with smaller or less useful instruction leaflets than that. So way to go. Thank you, Stages. Okay, what else is in here? Yeah, don't think that's important. Some legal nonsense they have to put in there. Okay, just to prove it's an original equipment Shimano crank arm, you actually get the little leaflet that Shimano supplied to them with the crank arm. Cool. Almost the best part of it though. I think we all know what this is. Stickers? Yeah? Anyway. And that, apart from a little serial number and anti-D card, which I guess you'll need, is it. So, fitting it, in my experience, is really simple. So let's do that next. Okay, so we've hit 12 minutes on this video already, and if you've made it this far, you've got my gratitude and my admiration, to be honest with you. So to spare you having to hang around any further, I'm going to do this in two parts. We've done the explanation of why I went with Stages, and we've done the unboxing. So I'm going to do the fitting in another video, because that'll be really short. Promise you it'll be much shorter than this. So I'm going to do the fitting in another video. Really easy. So right, okay, thanks for watching this one. I'll follow up with a video of just whacking this thing on, getting it calibrated, getting it set up, and hopefully just the first ride with it as well, just to give you my thoughts on it. I think I can tell you now what I'm going to think of it, because my other Stages power meter is just bang on. So hopefully this is going to be the same. But yeah, thanks for watching this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully it was of help. There will be an ongoing series on the Planet X Pro Carbon Evo as I keep sort of riding it and getting used to it. I can tell you, like, I've had it, what, 2-3 weeks now. Been riding it for a couple of those weeks and just adore that bike. Absolutely adore that bike. So hopefully there'll be some more good content coming out. There'll also be some more good content coming out on my mountain bikes as well. I've got the Boss Nut, and I've got to be honest with you, as mountain bikes go, I adore that bike. Absolutely adore that bike. You're spotting a theme here. I just love bikes. Anyway, right, thanks for watching this one. Catch you in the next one.